Hello and welcome to the Overshadow Shadowcast with your host Thomas Anderson and no one. Unfortunately today it's just your host Thomas Anderson, who will also have to be the tech wizard. Abigail's not here today due to scheduling conflicts. Technical issues, we're calling them. It's just me. So that changes it subtly from what we normally do, and by subtly I mean completely. But we'll keep on with the usual, we'll soldier on. So we start with, what have I been playing? Now, as you'll remember from the previous podcasts, there's been an ongoing saga with my television. Originally it was broken and needed fixing, and then it was beyond economic recovery or repair, BER. Now it's been replaced by a brand new shiny Samsung TV, and pardon me, I've just been recently I've had that delivered and set it up. So the first things first for me in that scenario was to set it up and to check that it was working properly and to see if it was better than the previous one, because this TV's made 3-4 years later. So it was for me, I wanted to know whether or not it was better. So I've just been playing games I've already played, just little snippets here or there, because I've only had it for a couple of days. And so far I've tried a bit of The Crew and a bit of Halo 5 and some GTA Online, GTA 5. Now, unfortunately, because it's a Samsung, many of you with Samsungs will know this, it depends on the type of Samsung you've got, but they regularly hide the game mode for their television settings in odd little nooks and crannies in their televisions. I think it's to do with the operating system that they run in their smart TVs, because it's not in the picture settings. It's in, for my TV, it's in external device management. So I think that the picture settings might remain at normal when I'm using anything except my hooked up consoles, in which case it will then change to game mode for any of those. But it took a wee while to do, and I'm not used to having to remember to change it to game mode, because my previous TV's game mode was reasonably compatible with YouTube and Netflix and anything else I might have been watching, like the BBC iPlayer. So I'd never changed it away from game mode, but this game mode isn't. The picture quality actually is very, very bad when it's not, because it functions by it doesn't improve the graphical quality of the picture or the quality of the picture. What it does is speeds up the frame rate, the refresh rate of the TV by prioritising certain things and possibly reducing the graphical quality. Sorry, not the graphical quality, the actual quality of the image. That doesn't make it worse, it actually makes it far better in gaming, but uniquely to gaming because of the frames per second rate of gaming. You know, you basically try to get the best quality of picture for gaming. You need to reduce the lag of the between the console, the TV, and then the TV and the picture on the screen. So I'm not used to having to change it back, and it was difficult to find. So I've only tried a couple of games with the game mode on. I think I've only actually, if I think about it, I think I've only tried GTA 5 so far, and that just looked incredible. For the first 10 minutes I didn't like it because I thought that it was still very grainy. I was worried that the TV might still be not functioning, sorry, might be broken or not functioning properly, or wasn't very good. So I called in my brother to have a look, he has a Samsung TV as well with a game mode, and he had a look at it and he realised that it was, he said, that looks amazing. It's just that all the little pock marks that you're seeing and all the little gaps are actually there. It's just that your previous TV wasn't able to render it, so you're not used to looking at good pictures, so you don't know what good looks like. So I had to be told by him that the TV quality was pretty good, because I couldn't tell by myself, basically, because I'm so used to having the previous picture quality that wasn't that good. So it's things like driving down the road and seeing pockmarks in the road and thinking, oh, that looks terrible compared to the nice smooth roads of before. But then I got out the car and had a proper look and we saw that it was just cracks in the road and little potholes which are supposed to be there. It's just that I couldn't see them on the previous TV. So I'm looking, now that I've found that and know how it works and know that it does work, I'm really looking forward to trying that on the other games. Just so that I can see a comparison, and then I'm looking forward to seeing if I can find something shiny and new. It doesn't do 4K like I mentioned in the previous podcast, because 4Ks aren't really a 32-inch TV thing, but something like Fallout 4 would be interesting to see on it, Halo 5, which I've not had a chance to do. I'm looking forward to perusing those, but we only established that it was working and working properly a little while ago, so I've only had a chance to play GTA 5. But that is what I'll talk about. I don't like... we made a decision recently that we'll try not to... It's about what we've been playing, not about the new thing that we've been doing or the most recent release. So a lot of the time we will talk about games I've already spoken about, but only if we have something new to add. But in this case, I am, it's quite a lot of GTA 5, and the reason is that's the game I like to play with my brother, with Brian. But this particular story is the same as previous ones, but with a slightly different twist. So I'll be very quick about it. It's the same heist setup mission, the Humane Labs raid. And that we've been on before, and in this particular mission what we have to do is sneak in, kill a load of people who are in the way, and then park a modified car with an EMP generator in the area that they park their cars so that it blends in, and then when we're doing the heist I assume the EMP gets detonated, and that's lovely. Now, this is a stealth mission. I think it's the first full proper stealth mission that there's been for the heist setup missions in GTA Online. And the problem that we've had, I've mentioned it before, is I still don't see why you need 4 people. You could do this with 2 and it would be fine. You don't need all 4. I also don't understand why you can't set off an alarm, because surely the bodies are going to be fine. But possibly it's just I've not gotten to the stage where there's a clean-up process and all the bodies are cleared away, because we've never been able to get to the part where we can park the car, because the alarms always go off. So I mentioned before that we had played it with a couple of other people we don't know with no team chat, who had just used suppressed machine guns instead of the snipers you're given, and gotten really far. So me and Brian went down to the local gunnery, and we purchased suppressors for all our suppressor usable weapons, and we tried it that way, and we got really far. We only had a few people left to kill before the alarm went off, and we thought, right, we can do this. The problem that we had was that the 2 other people in our team didn't seem to either care or agree with us, because again it was 2 random people we'd never played with before and without any team chat, so we weren't speaking to them. And the problem that we had was they seemed to just keep setting off the alarm. But this time it seemed different, it seemed deliberate. Because this time the first person set off the alarm and got the mission cancelled about 10 or 12 times in a row. In lots of different ways. But he eventually changed his mind and decided to watch me and Brian a few times, and then he started copying us. So I think he was just somebody who wasn't entirely au fait with how to do the mission. So he stuck with us after a while, and we thought, okay, fair enough, he's just not understood just how difficult this is, and now he's learned. That's okay, that's not annoying. But as soon as he learned, the other person in the team went completely insane. That's the only way I can explain it, because there's a part in it, there's a front gate with 2 guards, you go in, turn right, and there's a road that goes round the back of the lab. and it's manned by soldiers and scientists, and you've got to kill them all really quickly and silently so that the alarm doesn't go off. And that road seems to lead up to an area where you can park the car. And if you kill everybody, you're able to park the car easily, and then I assume either that's the end of the mission or there's some cleanup process and then you're done. But this, as soon as the other person learned what to do, the second other person in our team, because it's a team of 4, me, Brian and 2 other people, that's when they seemed to go a bit insane. And what happens is, a car leaves that area where the cars are parked, drives down the road, goes up towards the gate and leaves. They don't see any dead bodies, you leave. So as long as you just shoot the 2 at the front gate, then they'll drive out and it's no problem. But every single time following the first other player's rebirth, the second other player decided to open fire on the car. It was even to the point where the last 4 or 5 attempts before that player quit, they wouldn't even hide properly. They would stand in the path of the car and wait and then open fire on it. Never once being able to kill all the people inside. So, I don't know if the person was either just really frustrated and wanted this done, so was, you know, rushing it, was pushing it, or if they were really just trolling us, because it seemed way too deliberate, the sheer number of times they were ruining the mission. And I guess one of the reasons that we keep talking about it is because something that should be so fun and so enjoyable and so pleasant to do, and not this complicated or fiddly for this reason, is being ruined and elongated by the fact that you can't build a proper team. Maybe if they had some sort of AI that could take up 2 of the positions in the team, that would be better, because right now I don't see why they thought this was a good idea. Being forced to work with these 2 other players who are able to, you know, completely by themselves ruin the mission, is with no way of doing anything about it, because there are now so few players willing to do the heists that you just cannot. So, you know, you can't be that picky. You just take the 2 you get and just run with it and hope they're willing to actually play. It's, I guess I keep talking about it because we're still playing it, because this should have been done ages ago and it hasn't been. We're really getting to the point now where we're going to have to seriously consider doing these missions as part of the channel and having 2 other people, say Abigail being one, someone else being another, who we know, because we seem to just be ending up in teams with people that will not do this properly. And that is not why this is not what Rockstar wanted when they made the game. So I'm having heard about Red Dead Online, I am genuinely concerned, because GTA 5 made them a lot of money. GTA Online made them a lot of money without being any good whatsoever in a lot of ways. I mean, the really interesting part of GTA Online is frankly unplayable if you don't have a group of 4 people. So I'm hoping they've massively improved that. Also, the drop-off of players from GTA Online obviously was extreme because it didn't work properly for the first few years. But yeah, genuinely disappointed that this is the position that GTA's in online, that we just can't get it done because it's easy for one player to just ruin it, even when they're not trying to. So that is... We're not going to cover much about Red Dead or Fallout 76 because I've been looking through other gaming channels that I look at, and the amount of coverage they are getting, plus Spider-Man, is ludicrous. It's like there's only 3 games, 1 out, the other 2 are on their way. So we're not going to cover much, but with the announcement of Red Dead Online, that game has to be several tiers better. They've got to shift several gears to make that good, just even functional in many ways. It's silly. The sheer amount of times you're forced to play with people that are just not going to make it fun for no reason. It's just terrible. It's absolutely terrible. But that's all I've been playing. or it's not all I've been playing. As I said, I've played other games, but it's the only story I've got. I'm hoping that we can get some good luck, and the next time we try it, we'll get through it. But I'm not entirely banking on that because it's not been particularly. When it's me and Brian, brilliant, so much fun. When it's not, it's just you're always so scared that one of the other players is going to do something stupid or evil, and then you're back at square one, and that's not the way it should feel. Anyway, we'll move on to the actual news, and not just the news of my TV and life. So the first piece we've got here is that last week we spoke of Telltale Games and the massive layoffs following the news that they're now going out of business, which is a great shame for lovers of Telltale Games, of which I have to say I'm probably one, and especially those that love the Walking Dead seasons of the Telltale Games. I'm not a great fan of 2 and 3 because I've never played them, because the zombie things aren't really my thing, but I did play 1 because I heard a lot of good things about it and I thought that was fantastic. So if they were able to win me over, then that's just another award to go along with the over 80 they won for that game. But we're going to focus on the actual company, and many of the employees that we mentioned that were laid off, we mentioned last week, they didn't receive severance pay following the redundancies. And so several people have tried to do something about this, and Emily Grace Buck, who worked as a narrative director at Telltale, she started the hashtag Telltale Jobs, which was a hashtag on Twitter trying to get companies to offer to Telltale employees who'd just been made redundant jobs. And because of the quality of the work that Telltale employees have done, that has taken off. There's a lot of companies looking into trying to hire these people now, and that's good because we don't want them going out the industry, and we want the quality that they're able to create going to companies that will make games the right way, which Telltale clearly weren't doing, which is why they went under. She also helped, Emily Grace Buck, she also helped set up Ko-fi pages. And these are basically pages that allow people to donate money to people. Usually it's so that they can continue to create content of some description, but you can do it for any reason really from the looks of it. And she helped set up these pages that allow people to donate money to the former Telltale staff as individuals. And I think it's called Ko-fi because the idea is you buy them a coffee and that donates, I think it's $3, and that really took off as well. She's done quite a lot of good work for these people, so she should be saluted for that. But God of War director Cory Balrog, he's also taken up the standard of the ex-Telltale employees. And it's rumoured that he's donated to all of them on Ko-fi, although I can't verify that, but that's, if he has, that's at least 3 times 250. And he also took on Telltale directly by asking them, and this isn't a direct quote, when they would be paying their staff severance pay. So, from a gaming point of view, this is extremely good because these people will be looked after, hopefully. But the gaming aspect is that if they get picked up by other companies, they'll continue to make games, which is great. From a human point of view, it's bad that these people weren't given severance pay, and from a business point of view, it's disgusting that they didn't have that set up because Telltale were a really large company. But it's good that people like Emily Grace Buck and Cory Balrog have stepped in to help. And I also like the idea that the director of God of War was arguing about how when Telltale mentioned that they might have found some backing, somebody who's willing to step in and help them finish off the last series of The Walking Dead, season 4. To which Cory Balrog, that's when he challenged them, and he said that he would happily wait for the content for the game, as long as those people were paid their severance pay first, because the people who created such content and done such good work should be treated with dignity. And from a human point of view, that's nice to see that when you've got people like EA and Activision, there are still people that think money is just a thing, a tool, not something worth accruing by itself. So the story is bad, it's horrible, but it's because of its little human narratives, it does have the potential to be beneficial to the way this industry does its work, basically. Because you can't have... I don't even think in Europe you could have done this. I don't think it would have been possible for a company to not have redundancy pay packets in place. I'm not entirely sure if that would have been legal. But it's good to see that there are still people that care about what happens. And that's good for gaming, because these are the sort of people that care about fans. So, yeah, shout out to Emily Grace Buck, Cory Balrog, and God of War, which is a game that, frankly, everybody should play at one point or another. I've only heard fantastic things about it, so that's getting added to my list. Next piece of news we've got is in relation to video game addiction in China, which is quite a step to the side compared to the previous conversation. The game in question is called Honor of Kings. It's an extremely popular game in China, and it's testing the use of facial recognition software. And this is in response to regulators that want to reduce the level of addiction in children. The game in question, Honor of Kings, is a mobile app, and the testing that will take place will be restricted to thousands of new, thousands of new players in Shenzhen and Beijing. The idea is that the facial recognition software will limit the playing of the game to 1 hour if the player is under 13, and to 2 hours if they're between 13 and 18. Now, there are certain aspects that have to be looked at this story individually, starting with facial recognition software is probably nowhere near good enough to be used to limit somebody's playing of a game. This is not going... if I was to guess, I'd say this is not going to work very well to start with. A lot of these players are probably going to be banned for no reason for the rest of that day, or they're going to be allowed to play long past the apparent limitation. Secondly, I come from Scotland. The legal age of adulthood is 16, so if this was to be rolled out worldwide, there is no way you can legally ban a 17 and 18-year-old, 17 or even a 16-year-old, sorry, from playing a game for more than 2 hours in Scotland, because they're an adult. It would be a breach of human rights. But then there's also the idea of video game addiction in children. The idea of video game addiction at all. It has been proven, it does exist. And obviously you have to ward carefully about it. But simply having an app that bans the use of a game to an hour a day for an under 13-year-old. My question there is, why would... When I was under 13, I would play games quite a bit. Same with under 18. But only if I didn't have something else to do. So if my mates were playing football, I was playing football. If I was doing something with my family, I was doing something with my family. But if it was cold and wet and rainy, it's Scotland, then I would be playing a game. If I was in the house by myself. So this limitation, to me, I don't see how helpful it will be. There's also the fact this is a mobile app. There are dozens of games like Honor of Kings. So this is not going to be useful at all, because you're not stopping the person using the phone or playing any game. You're stopping them playing one specific game. They'll just move to another, because it's most likely a free download with in-app purchases. So I guess I have to join the throng of people questioning whether or not this will be applicable, useful, or the software will actually work, for one. If you can do this to people, and then if it's even worth trying because it's only one game. You'd have to do this for every single game, and then, well, this then follows into another story that we've got to tell, which would be an interesting negative side effect, which is that what if your child can't do anything but play games? What if that's how they interact with their friends? And you're saying, no, you can't play Total War, or you can't play Age of Empires, or you can't play GTA Online or Halo with your friends because you've had your hour already. You might have a disabled child having to choose between that hour with their friends or the hour just now by themselves, and then either way they've got an hour where they're doing nothing. I think this is ultimately an utterly ineffectual way of tackling the problem. But if you limited it to mobile apps, I'd agree with it, because if you're playing the phone while you're out and about, you have other things you can do. And so if this didn't come to consoles, then I would be fine with it. And I think legally you could apply it. But if somebody's paid for something, I think that'd be very difficult to apply. And they're obviously going to have to tailor the age to the country that the person is in, not the country the person is from. But there's also the fact that you could see parents challenging this if they chose to allow their children to play. I just think that this is going to be difficult to apply and of absolutely no use whatsoever in tackling the problem. But if it causes money to be put towards facial recognition software, that might have other applications. So I'm kind of okay with it. At least seeing where the study goes, or the trial. But as I said, this story leads into the next story that we have, and I think this is the last story for today. A shorter episode because there's only me. Now I was mentioning that this game, this facial recognition software for Honor of Kings, will limit the play of under 13s to an hour a day, and under 18s, so 13 to 18, to under 2 hours a day. This next story relates to Wes Pack. Now he's a little boy, he's 12 years old I think. So he would be, if this got rolled out to all countries, all people, all gaming mechanisms, he would be limited to 1 hour a day. And this particular little boy, unfortunately, has been fighting cancer for years. And as such, this is a bit of a guess, but scientifically valid, he may not be that capable of running around with his friends. So his best bet to social interaction is something like gaming. He can game with the people that he knows. And recently, so that's how those two stories link. He's very ill. He probably can't do much running around. This would allow him to play with his friends, to have friends to some degree. This would allow him to feel like a regular little boy. And if he was kept to under an hour a day, or an hour a day because he's under 13, I don't see how that's humane. How that's human, how that's remotely fair to say to this little boy that he only gets an hour a day doing the only thing he can probably actually do. I know it's an extreme. I just realised that as I was looking at today's agenda, that these two stories do have a little bit of a nudge, and the Venn diagram, they do overlap a little. And I just think this is one of those things which, it's just one of those cases for me that completely destroys the whole concept. Why would you want to stop people gaming? The gaming isn't the problem, it's the person's inability to control themselves. Gaming is not innately addictive. It's not cocaine or heroin. It's not innately addictive, or even alcohol or smoking. There's nothing innately addictive about it. It's when it's mismanaged. That's what you should teach children. I think this is one of the cases where we're going to end up, if you did bring it in, this wee boy would be left stumped. He'd be left completely stuck, and that's That's unacceptable. That's not a human solution. It's completely inhuman. But that's the last I've got to say on the facial recognition software story for Honor of Kings. We're now going to move to the story about Wespac. And as I said, Wespac's 12 years old, about 12, and he's been dealing with cancer for years. And unfortunately, he recently found out that there was no course of treatment for him anymore. He wasn't responding to his treatment, and they were going to... The best advice for his family was to stop treatment, and... Well, it's like, yeah, the phrase is he's now terminal. His case is now terminal. Obviously, when his family's told, they're devastated. They had practiced a policy of complete honesty with Wes, so they immediately told him. And obviously, he's a 12-year-old boy who's just been told that he's not... Well, I'm not entirely sure when his birthday is, but if he makes it to 13, he's not going to make it to 14. And so obviously, he's absolutely distraught. But a few days later, the story is that he was having an MRI scan and he started crying. And it was because he had just realised that he had pre-ordered Fallout 76. He had pre-ordered the Power Armor Special Edition, and that's slated for release in November of this year, but there's no guarantee that Wes will make it that long. I mean, that is the story. That is the story, the moment that a little boy... That's the little point in that story, that exact crux where that little boy understands the nature of mortality, of his own mortality, when he realises that he won't exist past a certain point, and therefore anything that happens after it he will not be involved in. That is the understanding of mortality, that we will cease to be but the world will continue to. And that's the moment that it happened. That's what this story really is, that little boy suddenly understood what mortality was and how it applied to him. And he saw it through this video game. The fact that he wouldn't get to see it, but he'd been looking forward to it so much. Anyway, his parents were speaking about this to some people that they knew, and eventually it goes down the chain of people who know people. You know, the whole the idea we're all connected to everybody else in the world via a chain of at most 7 people. And Bethesda heard about this story of Wespac, how he'd ordered the game and he wasn't ever... Well, there's a decent chance he's not ever going to get to play it. So what happened was they brought the game round to his house in its current format. They let him play with it for the entire day, so he had an entire day of Fallout 76 gameplay. So he's the first person to ever play it outside of Bethesda, I think. And they also brought and gave him the first prototype of the Power Armor helmet that comes with the Power Armor Special Edition of Fallout 76 that Wes had pre-ordered. And this this version of the helmet had been signed by Todd Howard, the maker of Fallout 76. And I think that this is... I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but we got very, very angry at Bethesda for blocking the sale of a game because somebody else was selling it and they weren't going to get any money from the sale. That's really it. They've done this quite a bit. They're quite money grubby in some ways. They're not as bad as EA or Activision, but they're not as good as somebody like CD Projekt Red. They have a habit of if we take Fallout Shelter into account, if we use that as the example, sorry, the microtransactions they added to that game completely ruined it. And they blocked the sale of a perfectly new copy of a game because it was technically not new to them because it had been sold to this person, but this person hadn't opened it and was selling it unopened brand new. And this was in America. The Constitution, I think it is, actually specifically allows you to sell a product as new as long as you've never used it. So the only reason they got away with that and the person had to take the online posting down was because they could, in a civil action, they could financially bully the other person, and that made me very unhappy because the tiny amount of money they were going to get was not worth it. It's ludicrous. They probably lost money just doing that. But to then see them in this instance with a terminally ill 12-year-old and doing this for him, one of the senior game developers, I believe, is the person who took it round and sat and played with Wes for the day. The Power Armor helmet was actually, Wes could put it on. I don't know if that's because people can wear them or if it's because he's a boy so he can fit it on his head. But he looks kind of ridiculous in it because it's like a sort of like a bucket in a way. But it's a huge, it looks like it's built for an adult head if you can wear them, and he's a tiny little boy, so it's like half of his body is this huge helmet. To be honest, he's probably been wearing it every day since. But to see them reach out to people like that, and the fact that Bethesda have previously memorialised fans in games before. I believe the brother of a big fan of Fallout died. So in Nuka-Cola World DLC, I think the person's name was Evan. They put an NPC into the game called Evan. To memorialise this fan's lost brother. And to see that humanity, I mean, you could claim that it's a PR stunt, but you can PR stunt it in completely different ways. For example, this was a person taking it round to the boy, and that's got them a lot of good PR. Bungie, they took it. They heard about a person that was recovering from mobility issues or hand-eye coordination issues, I think it was, and this person enjoyed playing Destiny, and they found it was actually helping to treat their condition. So Destiny, Bungie, gave this person a download code or something like that, which got them some really fancy weaponry that wasn't due to come out yet. So these things are really nice, and they help players feel important, and they're good PR. But in both of the cases that I've stated, I would say that it's PR. I'm not going to be cynical here. They've got a PR benefit from what they've done, but I don't think that's why they did it, because it's too human. They could have milked this and done almost absolutely nothing in both cases. And they haven't. In both cases they've given things away. The Bungie story was a lot more low-key, but there are ways that they could have done this that would have been completely different. In both cases, for example, there was no, let's bring the person in, photo, have everybody set up and lined up, and aren't we brilliant? In both cases, they just sent the thing to the person, and that was basically it. And so I think that there were far more professional, official ways that these things could have been milked. But the story came out from the fan, not from the actual developer. And so I class this as purely human, as a good human response. And so I'm really happy to see something like this. And I'm hoping that, like I've said with the previous stories, that humanity will out. That I hope that's what happens. Because it's obviously a very sad story what's happening to Wespac, and he's terminal. There's nothing anybody can do about that. But they can let him play that game. And so they did. There was no reason to. Except it made a 12-year-old boy really happy. That's why they did it. And there's nothing, I can't see anything cynical. They were always going to get a PR boost out of that. But I can't see any cynical attempt to manufacture a greater PR boost. And so I'm just really, really happy to see this. It's another story I'm really happy to see about humanity in the gaming world. And some other people who've, or the other people who have reported or heard of this story, which will be a lot, as I said, there'll be a decent PR boost from something like this. It has actually made me think, well, maybe Fallout 76 won't be that bad. If it's got that sort of humanity in it. It has made us wonder, as stated, the previously memorialised fact. It has made a lot of us wonder, because as I said before, Bethesda have memorialised fans in their games. What they may do here when Wes sadly does pass away, because that is the inevitable effect of Terminal. It's the inevitable effect of being human. And a lot of people have been talking about, because there's no NPCs, no human NPCs in Fallout 76. That's part of the whole big point of it. It's that, and the whole idea is the only humans you come across are other actual humans. So there's been a lot of people talking about, well, do you think they'll make him the only human NPC in the game? Just a character called Wes. And that would be an interesting way to go, and I don't think anybody would have any problem with it. The only issue being that they've said there won't be any human NPCs in. So if they stuck to that, other people have suggested the idea of either other characters in the game that aren't human, one of them being called Wes, because there are non-human, human-like robots in Fallout games, like synthetics they're called, I think they're called synthetics, something along those lines, or possibly a statue to a character in the game called Wes. It'll be interesting to see what they do, and it'll be sad, but I think whatever they do, people will respond positively to it, which is basically, I don't want to try bigging up the gaming community in a story that's so sad, but this is why that whole idea of gamers being those really annoying teenagers that just shout at each other and online is true, but only for the teenagers who just shout at each other online and are annoying. The vast majority of people are actually quite kind. I think the idea being that gaming can in many ways level the playing field, because as I mentioned before, with Bungie and Destiny, there was a person who played it because it helped them overcome an illness or disability that they had with their hand-eye coordination and the use of their arms. We've got a 12-year-old boy here wanting to play Fallout 76 because he's got cancer. I mean, there's a massive amount of equalising that can happen with games, and to hear these human stories, it's you're sort of proud to be a gamer when stuff like this happens. There's not really any other way of putting it. It's this is what me and the people I play games want gaming to look more like, and less like bullies online, trolls, a lot less sexism, although I've obviously never encountered it. Funnily enough, not because I'm a man, but because I don't play with girls. Which might be sexist in and of itself, but I don't think so. I think it just happens to be the way that it is for me. Yeah, this is what we want it to look like. And this is one of those stories of a heartfelt human response from the gaming community that it's nice to see something like this. And it's been earned simply because people have reached into their own humanity, not because a lot of other people were shouting at them for either good or bad reason. This is just people being human and their heartstrings have been tugged at. And I suppose it's nice to see that that people will still be people when they don't have to be. The last note on this story here is that there's a GoFundMe campaign for Wes's family, and this is because there were massive amounts of medical expenses. His family, I believe they're from a place called Newport News, VA. Now, I originally thought VA was Vancouver, but it's not. VA is also Virginia. I should have realised that because Americans are more likely to put the state name in there when they say anything, basically. And this GoFundMe campaign is because his family, as I said, they racked up a lot of medical debts, and also they had to travel all over the place to get the specialist treatment. So there was expenses for just accommodation and living expenses while caring for a child with cancer. So there's a GoFundMe campaign. It has nearly reached its goal. But if you've got anything that you want to donate to this family, if this story's tugged at your heartstrings at all, you could donate money if you wanted to. Yeah, it's quite a sad story because I did a little background reading, and I think there was a couple of times when he was cleared. They said he was okay now, and then he kept going into remission. I guess it's just annoying, really, that we see companies making so much money and so many people all over the world getting away with tax evasion and all the rest of it. The scientific research grants for the whole for the whole world as share of GDP is like 0.01. It's like 2.11% of global GDP is spent on military expenses. It's just, cancer should have been annihilated by now, because it's a condition every human being will get if something else doesn't get us first. And the very fact that we haven't managed to do it is just we're the human race. We can figure this out. It's not that difficult. We've just decided it's not important. I mean, sorry, but the death toll for cancer must outweigh the death toll for war. And cancer is inevitable in every human being. War isn't. Just stuff like that when you're reading this story, just... But that's the benefit, I suppose, of living in Scotland, is that we wouldn't need a GoFundMe campaign. I mean, I've had family members get severe cancer treatment before. We didn't need GoFundMe campaigns because our government looks after its people, pays for the medical expenses and helps with any of the other expenses. And this is a family with a 12-year-old and younger dealing with cancer for years. I think it was at least 5. And their government hasn't... the fact they've been left with a bill at all is utterly ludicrous. It's a shame to everybody in the world, but especially to their country, that hasn't helped them enough. It's disgusting that they need that much help after this financially. I mean, it should be the last concern, but when you deal with countries that think that much of money, but don't bother to take care of their people, that's what you end up with. A 12-year-old boy's family having to work out how they're going to afford the fact that they tried to save him. I suppose there's your comparison. When you've got all the people running the world, and then on the other hand you've got gamers. Gamers reach into their pockets. The people running the rest of the world won't even reach into somebody else's to pay for this. It's annoying on one hand, but it's also nice to look at the gaming community and see that they at least have acquitted themselves with honour. And if you can give any support, please do so, because his family deserve a lot, and they're having to put up with basically getting none of it, in the form of the fact that they should still have their son. So if you can help them, anything at all is much appreciated. So that's all the news for today. I wasn't going to leave you on that sad note about Westpac, but as I've spoken about it, I've actually realised that I think it would be a disservice to talk about anything else afterwards. Westpac, as a little boy, is important enough to be the last thing we should think about just now, and to play in our heads for a little while. So I was going to tell you a story about when I was a bit younger, and I wasn't that young, I think I was 19 or 20 or something, but we'll save that for next week. Because as I said, I think Westpac, I've decided right now actually, as I was speaking, that Westpac is going, he has earned the right, he is important enough to play tennis with the ideas in my brain. He's important enough to be on my mind just now, so, and I think everybody's mind just now. So I'm going to stop, and I'm going to wrap this up right now by saying thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe in the video below. You can leave a comment if you want, we'll try and get back to you. It shouldn't be too difficult, there aren't many comments. You can follow us on Facebook as well at overshadow.shadowcast, and you can contact us at overshadow.shadowcast@gmail.com. And yeah, thank you for listening. I'll be thinking about Westpac. I hope you do as well. And if you can help his family in any way, or anybody like them, please do. See you next week.